Clinton Jaws, when you break up with your girlfriend, it's because there's something better out there. You want to better yourself. The grass is greener on the other side. That's why you do it. And that's what Singh did. He broke ties with Trudy, and he did it because he's not loyal. He stuck with him forever and then breaks up with him right at the moment where you're supposed to break up with him because he's not a loyal dude. He did it because he's scummy. And you can see it. Everybody sees it. And he's been running around for the past couple of days talking about it. That's all he's doing is talking about it. But what's he talking about? I honestly don't know if he's just juvenile or if he's actually going insane. That maybe his mind is actually insane. How many times do you have to tell us that you ripped something up or you tore it apart?
Well, as I said, I've ripped up the agreement with Justin Trudeau, and I've ripped up the agreement with Justin Trudeau. But because I ripped up the agreement with Justin Trudeau, we have ripped up the agreement with Justin Trudeau. We've ripped it up. Well, we've ripped up the agreement with Justin Trudeau. I've ripped up the agreement. We've ripped up the agreement, and so we've ripped up the agreement. Like I said before, we've ripped up the agreement with Justin Trudeau.
You think Canadians are actually retarded. Like, you actually think we believe you when you speak. And finally, a reporter, question of the year so far, calls him out on it. And of course, he doesn't answer the question.
You've said about a dozen times at least that you've ripped up the agreement and that makes an election more likely. But you've been asked several times and you won't answer. Do you have confidence in the Trudeau government as they stand now?
I will be clear again. We have absolutely ripped up the agreement with Justin Trudeau, and that means an election is more likely.
Clear. That's not clear. You're
and an election, whenever that election comes, we'll be ready to fight it. And the vision around that election is going to be an important one. Canadians will have to make a choice.
But can we get an answer?
Corporate-controlled Conservatives, they're going to let their corporate buddies rip you off even more, or New Democrats are going to save you money on your rent and your groceries. That's a choice that Canadians will have to make.
Can we get an answer?
A couple hours later, he goes on CTV. He talks to Vassy. Vassy gets a hold of him. I'm starting to really like this girl. I got to watch what I say here. Okay, yeah. If I was single, I would take her fishing. A little bit of attracted to her. I think she's going to have the biggest year of her entire career this year. This is what goes down. She gets frustrated. How many times does she have to ask a question to this dude without him answering it? And she calls him out.
Again, I'll put the question to you. You have told Canadians they are weak, they are selfish, that they have abandoned the very people who put them in office. You just described a host of reasons why you don't want to be a part of any formal agreement. How can you reconcile for Canadians watching now that you're still willing to vote with them and keep them in power on a case-by-case basis?
It became very clear, more and more evidence mounted that the Liberals were simply too beholden to corporate interest.
What's the evidence?
And that's not going to meet the needs of Canadians.
With due respect, what is the recent evidence that underscores that point that didn't already exist 6 or 8 months ago? My question isn't hypothetical. You are raising the idea that this CN rail dispute and their handling of it really was it a turning point? Like, again, I'm not clear why this wasn't a decision you didn't make earlier, unless now you see that your personal interest is better served and you didn't before.
Then finally she really gives it to him.
I guess I would just point out that both pharmacare and dental care are not completed in the vein that you saw them. There's even still a legislative process that's unfolding where pharmacare is concerned. I also wanted to ask you about...
Well, on pharmacare, in terms of the legislative process in the House, that's completed.
Yes, before
it's
the
a Senate vote, which obviously we don't have any influence over.
No, but things can happen. You never know. I'm just saying that's not completely done. I also...
It's voted in the House. That bill is done.
So you think for sure it's going to happen? You trust the Liberals to make sure it happens? Because I think the argument you're making is...
that's on them.
Yeah, but
the argument if Justin Trudeau doesn't move forward on pharmacare, that's because Justin Trudeau chose not to. But in terms of
the argument you're making, sure, but the argument you're making to Canadians is essentially you stayed in it as long as you did to get things done. So if those things aren't done, why aren't you continuing to stay in it unless there's some kind of political interest in it for you to move to a different position, which is what the Liberals essentially are accusing you of. They say blatantly, Karina Gold on this program last night, you put your own interests ahead of Canadians.
Dental care is done. We've got the legislation necessary for it, the program's out the door, and people are getting it. Millions of people have gotten it.
Did you hear that?
Pharmacare legislation is passed.
You put your own interests ahead of Canadians.
Own interests ahead of Canadians.
Dental care is done. We've got the
See how quiet he
legislation
gets?
necessary for it. The program's out the door.
Love it.
And people are getting it. Millions of people have gotten it. And the pharmacare legislation is passed. The anti-scab legislation is passed. Major pieces of our agreement have been completed. We've gotten a lot of work done, important work. And now we're turning the page on that and saying that the Liberals are no longer made it clear they're no longer able to do what's necessary to tackle the issues of the day. And the issues of the day are the high cost of groceries, high cost of rent. Housing and groceries are two major concerns I hear from. The Liberals have shown again and again that they've caved to corporate interests on those two files. And then most recently in the summer, they caved to the corporate interests of these large corporate railroads instead of letting workers get a fair deal. They've made it clear that they're not interested in tackling these problems. We've torn up the agreement with Justin Trudeau.
Can I ask you to clarify on the question of the pension, because it is an argument that the Conservatives are continually using. Are you eligible for a pension in February because of when you were elected in the by-election, and has that factored into your decision-making in all of this, or will it factor into your decision-making in perhaps prompting an election? Can I just get you on the record on that?
Not at all. It's a ludicrous suggestion.
When people do this?
I'm obviously going to get reelected in my riding. I'm not worried about that at all. This is
I just want to show you guys something. When I was a cop, this is true. When people do this, when they answer a question like this, they do this with their eyes. It means they're lying.
Not at all. It's a ludicrous suggestion. I'm obviously going to get reelected in my riding. I'm not worried about that at all. This is a silly argument being bought by Conservatives, but it's on purpose. And the reason why Pierre Poilievre is doing this, because he wants to distract from what he wants to do. He wants to destroy the dental care program for seniors. So for your parents, for your grandparents,
no.
He doesn't think they deserve to get their teeth looked after. He wants to get rid of this entirely.
Not my mom.
Not only that, he also wants to get rid of our universal healthcare system. He's been very open about that. He doesn't want to see a public healthcare system. He wants to see it entirely private. So that's what he's distracting from. He knows he's lying. And he knows that he's distracting from the fact that he wants to destroy not only dental care, but our healthcare system as well. We're going to keep on fighting to defend it because we believe in it. We believe no one should have to worry about how much money they have in their pocket to be able to get good quality care in our country. We're going to fight to make sure our healthcare is there for people, and we're going to fix it.
One final question for you, for Canadians watching right now, Mr. Singh. The Prime Minister keeps getting questions about whether he should remain as leader because of where public opinion polling for his party sits. At the same time, while the Liberals have had, dwindling, to say the least, political fortunes, your party has not been able to capitalize on that at all. Your polls have remained fairly stagnant for the last 3 years. Should people be asking you if you should remain on as the NDP's leader? Are you asking yourself that? And how much responsibility do you bear for the lack of success for your party?
We've brought in the biggest expansion of healthcare in a generation. I'm proud of the work that we've done. I'm running to be Prime Minister of this country, and I'll be leading the party to the next election, absolutely.
So do you not feel like you bear any responsibility for being unable to capitalize on the Liberals' fall from grace among Canadians?
We're going to be running to form government in the next election. I'm running for Prime Minister.
Respectfully, that's not really an answer. Are you worried at all about the fact that you haven't been able?
Respectfully, that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm running for Prime Minister. I'm running to beat the Conservatives. I'm running to make sure that this country has someone that's going to be on their side.
And I understand what you're saying. I think Canadians understand that you are going to run to lead the party. Do you bear any responsibility, though, for the hill that party has to climb in order to be competitive with the Conservatives in the next election? You have framed the choice as very obvious for Canadians and the consequences as very dire if the Conservatives win, but your party has not been able to compete with them. Is that at all your responsibility?
Yeah. Is it?
Well, it's a serious fight. There's no question about it. I'm not in any ways going to diminish the challenge in front of us. We've got a very big challenge. But it's clear that people are done with the Liberals. They're done with Justin Trudeau. And so when people want to replace Justin Trudeau, they're going to have to look to two choices. For federal parties, there's the Conservatives or the New Democrats. They want to change election. They want to get rid of Justin Trudeau, which people tell me they're frustrated with them. There's two choices. Not to say that this challenge is easy by any means. It's a very big challenge. But I want Canadians to know the choice is Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives, who are very open. They're going to cut your pensions, they're going to cut health care, and they're going to let big corporations rip you off. Or New Democrats who want to restore hope. We want to build and strengthen our healthcare system and your pensions and stop these corporations from ripping you off. That's not easy. I know that's going to be an uphill battle, but that's the choice in front of Canadians.
I will leave it there. Mr. Singh, I appreciate your time as always. Thank you so much.
Anyways, been watching this stuff for a long time. They're all criminal. It feels criminal. You go on TV and you don't answer a question. I could answer it. I would answer it. I would answer it with truth. You can never go wrong if you just tell the truth. Do you know how many votes he would get if he would have just said, yeah, I do. We should have did this better. We should have did that better. Gross. The whole thing's grossing me out. I'm going to have a gross year. I know it. It's going to be a gross year. I never know how to end these videos. Wrap it up.
Somebody said she's a good roller skater. That's what I heard, which is crazy.
That's about it.
Yeah. I mean, look, we're going to wrap it up soon, okay?
Yeah,
Is that what you're
please.
saying? Okay, done. Sorry.